Hi, today we're going to talk about state management in Toddle. And you may ask yourself the question, what is state management? Think about it like this. If you have a button and on click of that button you want to do something, you want to open a modal or you want to open a pop-up, that is state because there is a state open and there is the state closed. And I just want to give you an example. So how about we add a button in here. So we add a button element. We have our button, right? And now let's start with the basics and let's add a heading in here, right? So we add a heading, make sure we go to the div and that we make the text color of it white so we can read it. So right now we have a heading and we have a button. Let's just zoom in so it's easier to see. So we have a button and we have a heading, and let's give this a gap just so it looks nicer for illustration purposes. Let's do 1 rem. Here you go. So we have a heading and we have a button. Boom. So what we now want to do is we want to think about, let's click out of this here, and we want to see when I click on this button, I want to say true or false because this is how computers communicate, true or false. I want to say is open true, is closed false. So, and let's just pretend we have a modal here that we want to show, right? I have my button. Okay, so I want the button to set a variable. A variable is like a piece of data that stores a specific piece of data, a data store that tells us, what state it is on. So I create a variable and I can do like show modal and it will start as at false. Here we go. So now this is false. And what I can do is if I double click on the text and I click on the FX, I can dynamically set the text to the variable. So we make the variable that is on the back part of the front end visible. So now we see the variable is saying false and we can see it on the canvas, this is called the DOM, right? And I click on the button and I can go to events. Events are things that happen to the button. So I can go to the event click when I click on the button, and I can now add a plus in here. And what I want to do is I want to go to the variable that represents the state of the button. This is kind of like, like active, not active, This is what we call state in programming. So I can set the variable, and in order to do that dynamically, I want to go to fx. And let's kill this one. So I want to go on plus, and I want to go to the current value. In here, in this node editor, I can get the current value of that variable. So I update the variable using this function, and it will be updated in here as the current value of the variable. But now when it is false and I click on the button, it will set it to false. And if I click again, it will set it to false, which will not change anything. So what I can do is I can click on plus and I can search for the not operator. The not operator in Toddle is reversing the Boolean in here. Boolean is true or false. So when I have false and I make this not, the false turns into true. And if this would be true, it will turn into false. So it's reversing it using the not operator. So now, when I click on this button, it is true. When I click again, it is false. When I click again, it is true. And when I click again, it is false. You get the idea. This is what we do in here. And now, the state of true or false can be binded to anything on the page. So what we can do is we can add a div on the page in here, for example, and we can make this in styling absolute, and we can make this 100% and 100%. Here we go. And then we can give it a background color like this of something that's dark, maybe not too dark. Here you go. Or maybe we can give this a white background. And in the white background, we can give this dark text, and I can add another button in here. We can add another button in here, and we just center it, where we do the same thing, where I go on click, for example, and I go to the allow modal, and I'm going to take the current variable value that is tied to our variable, and I go to not, and I reverse it when I click on this button. And I can call this button close, for example. And now it's not closing because we still have this where the button is in, like this absolute div block here that is across the whole page. So I go to this div block and I go to show, and I base the show on my variable. So now I can call this button open, and then I can remove that h3 because we don't need it anymore. That just helped us to understand how the state on the backend looks. So when I click on open, I open this div block here, and then I can click on close, and I close it, and so on. And what we could do is, if I open it again, I can now go in here and style it. So what I maybe want to do is I may want to give this a width of 25 rem and a height of 25 rem to make it like a modal. And I can make this probably dark here a little bit, like this. I can give it rounded corners. I can make like 20 border, and I can add like a border that is like a darkish color. And then I can go to this button, and here's a cool tip. I can just go to Relume icons, and just let's go to a close button. So let's search for close. We have a close button here. I go on 25 pixels. I copy this for Figma, and oops, I went to Webflow. That's not current anymore. I just remove the text in the button, go in the button, paste it in here. I have my button, and now I can go to the button, make this absolute, and make this button absolute. Oops, here we go. And I go to top, I can do 1 rem, so it aligns on the top, and on the right I can do 1 rem, so I have it like the close button in the top corner. And what I can do, I can make this background, for example, whitish, just like that. I can make the text dark, and now I have my close modal, and I have my open, and I have my close modal. And when I open this again, I have this in here, and now what I can do is I can remove the hover, because I don't like that hover. I just click on the pencil and remove the hover. Now I don't have a hover. I don't like hovers. And now I open it and I close it. But what you're going to find is this is pretty clunky. It's pretty quick, and we want nice animations. Now, how do we do that with nice animations? Because I don't see any settings in Toddle to do that. Now, the cool thing about Toddle is Toddle doesn't think in, hey, don't worry about this. We wrote all this code for you, and it's doing magic on the back end. Don't ask us any questions. And you just use this. But then the downside of that is, if you want truly custom functionality, it won't really work for you, and you will have to go through a lot of loopholes. So Toddle thinks how development works, and it gives you the freedom to, they have those show and hide things pre-built, but it gives you the freedom really to build those things yourself. So instead of basing this div on the show and hide, what we can do is we can use a style attribute. So I have the element now in here, and it won't work because it's not based anymore on the show and hide. That is based on the variable that says true or false, show true, show false. But I can base this now on an animation. So I can go to attributes on the element that I want to animate. And what I can do is I can go to style, and I can add a style attribute, and I add a formula. So we start that formula with an if statement. So I add an if statement, I can delete this. The if statement will be based, we have the condition here. I go to the condition of the variable. When the variable is true, I want to show the element. When it is false, I want to hide it. So what we can do is we can animate this element using CSS. And this might sound intimidating, but the nicest and most effective transition will just be a fade. So what we can do is we write opacity 0, and so we do opacity : 0, and then semicolon z index : -1, z index 999. I like doing a lot of 9s in my z index. So right now, if it's true, we want to do opacity 1, not opacity 0. I'm so sorry, because we want to show it. If it is true, it needs to be shown, and it needs to be on top of the layers of the page. The z index are the layers. So if it is -1, think about this. This is the main body of the page. If it is z index 999, it will be here. And if it is z index -1, it will be here, right? So this is the layering. So this is just that when I click somewhere here on the page, I don't click on the element that shouldn't be on the page. The element that is clickable should be behind the page so the user can click it by mistake. So we have opacity 1 and we have z-index 999. If the show modal attribute variable says true, show it. Now if it is not true, we reverse it. We do opacity 0, semicolon, z-index, colon, -1. So it is in the background and not visible, as you can see in here. So now when I close this, it still doesn't have that fluent transition. And let's double check. If I click on here, let's see, it is setting it as false. And if it is false, it is 0. So, oh, actually it is this element here, even though it is hidden, is still over the button. So this is great also for educational purposes here. Right now, what z-index do we have? We have -1. So we want to make sure that the original div here also has a layout set, or has a placement set for z-index that is at least 1. So I can still click the button. And what we probably actually want to do is we want to go to the div and we want to wrap the page in a div. As you can see in here, I want to wrap the page in a div. Where did the div go? Went back. Yes, I have that div. I want to wrap the page in a div here, and I take my button. That button goes in this div, right? And then I have my modal in here that is attached to the body, right? So that should, as you can see, put the button over the div. So if the button is in a div that is in front of the modal, we will not have that layering issue. So when you want to go with animations, sometimes you worry a little bit about layering and those things, so you can have those nice transitions. But now what is happening, if I click on open, it's opening. If I click on close, it's closing. But we still don't have an animation. But since we now use CSS to do so, instead of using display none and display show using the show attribute, we have more flexibility in doing all of that, right? And what I would do is the button that is containing that div would need to be 100% width and 100% height, or probably I want to remove the padding that they add on default in here. So I want to remove that padding, and I want to go on the div here and I make this 100 VH. So minimum height 100 VH. 100 VH is 100 view height. I center it, and now as you can see, I used to be able to hover over here and select the hidden element, but now I can't click it by mistake. Only if I click on here, this is when it becomes available. So right now when I close it, it is not going to hover over the element as it did before. I can only hover over the button. This indicates us that it is behind this main layer here. So we have this main layer here, and behind it, that's where our modal is. This is what we want to make sure that we have the layering right. But now there's still no transition. We add the transition if we just go on our modal and we go to our transition. And in here, we can just set the transition, and we just set this to all. I like to use all because I'm a little bit lazy, and we can do like 500. I like 500s, and then as we can see, this is fading in just like that. Beautiful. Actually, maybe we don't want to have it 500. Maybe we want to have it a little bit faster. So what we could do is we could also adjust the way we have this fade in. We can make like a little bounce here. Look at this. So we have it close and we have it fade in with a little delay, just like that. We can also just use ease. Ease is like the industry standard. So I can go back in here and I can choose ease. And now when I use ease, I can just have it here, but I can also move it up and down. And I forgot the CSS name for it, but let's use ChatGPT to figure this out together. Let's ask ChatGPT how to move an element in CSS inline style attributes down using transform by let's do 20, or let's do by 100%. So ChatGPT is great. We are looking for inline style attribute naming conventions. I just copy this one. Boom. I go to Toddle. I'm going to go back on my attributes and I change the formula that applies this. So in here, when I show it, I just add a space and I make this from 100% to 0% so it is in the center. And then in the state where it is hidden, so when it is not in the viewpoint, when it shouldn't be there, it should be here, so it fades and animates up. I can paste this in here. And now, as you can see, when I close it, it's moving down. When I go in here, it's moving up. And we have nice animations inside of Toddle for those elements. And the cool thing is, since they are based on since they are based on variables and not based just on CSS classes or Webflow animations, as if you would build this in Webflow, those can even be triggered by API calls natively. So you could do, if this API returns a success, or if it returns a specific value, I want to set the variable to true and then trigger fading this up and showing some dynamic data in here. So this is the general understanding that you need if you get started in Toddle with state management, because most other no-code tools use state management only for requests, like request successful, okay, and all of that. So they use it for data. Toddle uses state also for animations, since it is a JavaScript-centered development solution coding language that, is fully JavaScript-centered. The benefit about that is everything, even animations, even pop-ups, everything is tied to variables. Everything is tied to the native state system that they give you, which puts you in full control in triggering any kind of animation, any kind of transition, any kind of movement on the page with beautiful transitions using CSS, but fully dynamically without having to click an invisible button or something like this. You will never have to go do a workaround in Toddle because, you are using the fundamentals, the foundations, the principles of clean web development. And that is everything about Toddle and how to use state in Toddle. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. I hope that it really helped you. And just look how beautiful this looks. Like, beautiful. In the next video, we're going to build a side menu that's going to come from the side, and we even add light and dark mode to it. So stay tuned for that. And I hope that this kind of new content helps you. And maybe if you're a Webflow designer, I hope that this took a little bit away, like the fear that you have from Toddle and like, where are my animations here? Because the animations, you can build the animations, you can build different steps. You can make, like, if the variable is this, it goes until here. If it is this, it goes until here. So you can really animate each step of the animation and connect it based on conditions to dynamic data, which really lets you customize animations based on different kinds of dynamic data and how the data is currently being processed and handled, which is the way every JavaScript framework, every JavaScript web app should be built on. So I hope that this really educated you on how to use state in Toddle, that state is more than just data. It is even something that factors very importantly into the UI. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support. If you want to learn more about Toddle, and if you need some helping hands with that, I highly invite you to join the NoCode Pro Code office hours, and now it doesn't work, to join our NoCode Pro Code office hours. We have them every day, and they are here to help you become a better Toddle developer, a better Xano developer, to really understand some of the underlying technology that you're using in these frameworks, to not just know what you need to do to get the job done, but to also understand how it's working, because this is going to put you in a place of self-sufficientness and of independence where whenever a problem comes to me, I can tackle it. And with that membership, you always have access daily, 5 days a week, to our office hours. So if you take on a client project or if you build something yourself for your startup, whenever there is a roadblock, whenever I face a challenge in Toddle, I can join the office hours, I can shoot a a DM, I can do a post, I can send a loom in the community, and you know that I'll be responding to you and helping you solve that as soon as possible within the same day. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that, and I wish you all the best. And yeah, I would love to see you in the community maybe someday. There is a little application process where you click on Get Full Access Now, and you just upload like a little video of you. We have like a cool video ask set up, because, you know, we just want to make sure that everybody who joins the community actually gets a value from that, and that we can help you. And, you know, we just also want to get to know you a little bit before you join, just so that we can make sure that you're a good fit for the community, and that we just all support and encourage each other in this journey that is becoming a better developer 1% every day. If you just are a little bit better today than you were yesterday, you're making great progress. And this is all where office hours are about. It's just, how can we be a little bit better today than we were yesterday? And this is what, you know, what makes you grow and what makes you become better, and at some point realize all the beautiful ideas that you just have flying around in your head, popping up when you're in the shower or in the toilet. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that, and I wish you all the best, and see you tomorrow in the next Toddle tutorial. Bye bye.